Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari. This is Great Big History Podcast. World history from 1450 till almost yesterday. Do you want to build an empire? Why the Europeans leave Europe, get rich, and change everything? Hint, it has nothing to do with their paleness. It starts kind of with the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague changed everything. First, plagues hit cities hard, which means they hit the economy. You have seen this. You have lived through it with COVID. Rich folk get out. They leave for the countryside. COVID happened, and the country started to lock down, and where did rich New Yorkers go? The Catskills and their summer places in the Hamptons. Whew, they got out. Gone. Who was left behind in New York? Poor workers, merchants, people who couldn't leave. And inflation hits the economy. Why? Because stuff becomes harder to get. People don't travel. Trade shuts down. So inflation always hits the economy. Now, historians, I was on X, I was on Twitter being like, inflation is coming, guys, right? And it just, the news did not prepare people for what was about to happen. And in every plague, we know inflation happens. Why? Because it disrupts workers. It disrupts trade, it disrupts business, it disrupts supply, it disrupts resources. And so inflation is people spending more money to get stuff they can't get easily. That's it. That's all inflation is. Yeah, you could go and take an MBA and get a more complicated definition, but it's really just people being willing to spend more money. So it's corporations being willing to spend more money to get the stuff they can't get other ways. Because if you could get it another way, you wouldn't spend more money. So that was 2. 3, women and children's silly behavior, quote unquote, gets outlawed. Dancing and games and get-togethers and gossip, but not work. Manly work. Work continues. Wawas stay open. But the dancing club shut down. Games had to go online. Right? Or basketball shut down. But Wall Street stayed open. Things men do. Work. And what happened to basketball? It came back. In their little bubble in Walt Disney World. Right? Because that's work. But stuff kids do. Birthday parties. Nope. Proms. Nope. High school musicals. Nope. Silly behavior. And we see this in Daniel Defoe's Journal of a Plague Year. Women and children got in trouble with the law for doing things that was fun. Because it was thought that might spread the disease. Their dancing might lead them to breathe heavy, which will lead to, or they're getting together to gossip and they're in close proximity. They might spread it somehow. The stuff that every time, the stuff men do is okay. The stuff women and children do is shut down. And so when people say, oh, we shouldn't have shut down school. Dude, we always shut down schools. In every plague, going back to when plagues started, schools get shut down. Because stuff kids do isn't serious in a society, in our society. So they shut it down to protect old people, to protect workers, to protect men, doing men's stuff. This is true in every plague that has ever come through Europe. What also happens with plagues is conspiracy theories replace scientific knowledge, especially the longer plagues go on. Why is this happening? Why did this happen to us? In the bubonic plague, you get religious cults saying the Catholic Church is wrong. They don't know what God wants. Healthcare workers die and are emotionally exhausted. Health itself becomes uncertain. We talk about COVID today as if it was, a cold. Oh, but when it first started, to be a nurse, to be a doctor in the ER was to be breathing nuclear like fumes. Like someone comes in with COVID, their breath could kill you. So, and then what happens when you take it home? There was no vaccine. We didn't even know what the disease was. It could kill your mother. It could kill your father. It could kill your husband. It could kill your kids. So being a nurse now, or a doctor, or any kind of healthcare worker, a home health aide, could now lead to multiple people's death. And that was true in the bubonic plague too. So second, if you lived and 25% of people died, so COVID is around 1%, though I remember when seeing the numbers, if you ended up in the ICU, remember, because originally it was 3 to 4%. In Italy, in China, it was China, you don't really know what the numbers are. But in Italy, it was 3 to 4%. Except for old people who went to the ICU. Then the moment, and you could see the numbers spike, the moment the ICU hit 100% full, suddenly it went from 3 to 4% of people died to 10%. It was a near immediate, per hospital, a near immediate. So that number goes down to 1% because the disease mutated, because the plague mutated. We see that with the bubonic plague. We know the one that kills 25% of the people, but there are waves that come through that kill far less. They're still the plague, but they're not as deadly. They're the Delta variant. But if you lived, suddenly there's less competition for jobs, which leads to higher wages. Workers get power. We see that now. We saw that in the work from home. We saw that in wages going up for everything. That also leads to inflation because more people who have more money can now spend things on more stuff. You have less competition for land and housing. Cheaper prices. More personal wealth goes into assets. Now, you may go, Professor, that's not what we saw. And I would say, yes, in 2020, 2021, you saw a spike in asset cost. The argument is not enough people died. Right? You got the worker power without the mass death. Does that make sense? Like 1% versus 25% is a big difference. Now, I don't know. I'm not a medieval historian. I'm not a plague historian, so I can't 100% verify the differences. But yes, we saw housing prices, land prices go up, spike, in fact. So we got the inflation without the offset of less people. There's less competition for college entrances, government jobs, personal and family improvement becomes easier. We see this in the 1400s and 1500s. Workers gain power over their employers or landlords for a time. Again, we had as law, you couldn't be kicked out of your apartment if you didn't pay your rent. Now, that was good for renters, not so good for landlords who needed the money to pay their mortgages. So, and this was true, and this is true just for a time. It will return to equilibrium. We're seeing it now. 5 years later, we're seeing more equilibrium than before. And that happened after the bubonic plague. So we see these changes going on in the bubonic plague. People are changing. People are different. The economy is changing. Who succeeds is changing. Now let's go to Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal. The Catholic reconquest of Portugal and Spain from the Arabs, the Reconquista, is almost over by 1450. Portugal's victory in around by 1250, it's more or less completely won, is a problem. I mean, it's good, but it's also a problem. And that problem is it's surrounded by the territories that will become Spain. Castile, Aragon, Toledo, Seville. It's surrounded by people who are eventually going to consolidate into the country of Spain. And that's in your east. In your west, you have ocean. So there's nowhere to go. So if Portugal is going to exist, it must make money. It must trade via the ocean. It must make friends. Because otherwise, it will just be absorbed by Spain. And in fact, this happens for a little while. So the Portuguese kings make friends. And the first is with England. It is the world's longest peace treaty. It's still going on. England and Portugal have their own peace treaty. They are both countries are part of NATO. And a lot of it is economic trade. The English kings had no one to trade with because they were at war with the French, and the French were the largest economy. And so this gave a way of shipping their wool to Europe. Ha ha! Trade in wool. Why do the Portuguese need wool? It's hot in Portugal in the summers and not that cold. It's fairly beautiful in the winters. I mean, there's reports now that Portugal is one of those places that Americans during COVID went to when they got remote work. When they got work from, they didn't have to. When they got work from home, they made Portugal their home because if you've ever been, it's a beautiful country. I mean, it is just beautiful country. In exchange, the Portuguese send wine, port wine. Mediterranean-styled wine. Based the best of it comes from the northern town of Porto, the port, and it's port wine. So if you haven't had port wine, it's a wonderful dessert wine. It's a wonderful sweet wine. It's one of my favorites. That and Italian Chianti, Tuscan Chianti. Yes, I'm a red wine person. So these two countries are making trade deals. They don't really have much to sell to each other, but it's something, and it's more important that it's kind of two against Spain is a way of thinking about it. They're going to go down. They could trade to the African coast. Africa's right there. It's right south of them. It's less than 100 miles. And the African coast, whether it's Morocco or you go further down to the Azores or you go even further down to West Africa, it's interesting and exotic, but the real money is in India and China and just has always been in India and China. And Portugal is as far as you can go on the Eurasian landmass from China. It is as far as you can go. I mean, technically there might be parts of Ireland that are further. But really, so you're going to have to go by sea if you're going to get to India or China. And so by the 1450s, Portugal is starting to send scientific and trade ships to try to find their route around Africa. And it's these little, they go a little bit down and then they come back. And they go, these relays, they go a little bit further down and they come back. And the idea being that they're trying to find the people who they can ally with, because you can't carry enough food and enough water to get you all the way there. It's going to take you years to sail from Portugal to India. So you have to find allies. You also have to know what the winds are, because if you get stuck, you're dead. You have to know what the currents and the tides are. You have to, what are these exotic lands? You just can't get on a boat and go. You're just going to die. So it's always a little bit further and then back, and a little bit further and then back. Was Portugal successful? Yes. Heck yeah, it was. In 1497-98, Vasco da Gama rounds southern Africa, taps into the African naval trade routes, uses African pilots and navigators, and reaches India. There you can see in the map, if you're watching the video, is like, remember I'm talking about these relays. Suddenly he gets to the Cape of Good Hope, gets around it, woof, he's in India. And you're like, wait a minute. What? Why? Why is it one giant? Why does it take so long? It takes 50 years to go to the western side of Africa. And it's the same dude on the same voyage who does the entire eastern side of Africa. And the reason why is there was basically 1,000 years of Indian Ocean trade between India, the Arabian Peninsula, Persia, and East Africa. And so merchants and navigators have been going to those three places as part of world trade for 1,000 years. So the cities along the coast of East Africa and Madagascar are like, Vasco da Gama shows up and goes, I am going to India. And they're like, yeah, it's over there. You want some of our maps? Look, you clearly don't know what you're doing. You're going to get stuck. How about you hire some of us? We'll help you get there, right? He has Africans on his boat piloting his ships to get them to India. So while it's always Vasco da Gama, quote unquote, discovers India, the truth is a lot more complicated. He jumped into a huge trade network that already existed. So, but the big thing is he made 6,000% profits. 6,000. Now, Bernie Madoff stole billions from rich people, promising 20%. People gave him billions of dollars and said, just make me 20%. And he said, sure. And he would send them fake monthly statements saying, oh, you're going up 20%. It's going up. And people would be like, wow, that's amazing. I'm making 20%, but the stock market's only going up 2%. Bernie Madoff's my man. And Bernie Madoff would then come and go, do you want me to take out the money and give it back to you? And people would say, no, keep it running for 20%. Do you know how much 6,000% is? 6,000% is Breaking Bad. Is you kill people for 6,000%. You conquer things for 6,000%. You build armies and invade places for 6,000%. You steal for 20%. You conquer for 6,000%. So the Portuguese king who was the largest investor, got rich. Suddenly the Portuguese king, who is not that important in Europe, he's not the French king, he's not the Holy Roman Emperor, right? He's not even the Danish king. The Danish king controlled the trade access to the Baltic Sea. And so he made a lot of money. The Portuguese king isn't even that guy. And now he might actually be the richest king in Europe, or like overnight. So other kings were jealous, and this begins the race to China. The Turks and the Italians are completely cut out. They are in, and they are not anywhere near any of these trade networks. In fact, the Italians, who had dominated the Middle Eastern trade, going back and forth between the Byzantine Empire and then the Arab caliphs and then the Turkish empires, are going to sell their knowledge to the French, the English, and the Spanish kings as a way of catching up. Because those three kings don't have anybody who can do oceanic trade. And here comes the Italians being like, hey, like, okay, we don't do too much on the oceans, but we know long distance trade, so we'll get you there. We'll figure it out. Or you can find your own guys. And these kings go, no. We need to catch up. We need to catch up. So the Turks and the Italians get poor. Italy goes from the richest part of Europe since the age of the Romans to a place my grandparents left. So that's what happens. European violence was always part of exploration. And this is the thing you have to understand. The Reconquista was a crusade in Spain. The Europeans fought all the time. If you weren't a farmer, as a regular dude, you probably were in an army killing somebody or waiting to be killed. European kings fight all the time, which is why there are so many European military historians, including me. You know, I'm able to be a military historian of Sweden and Finland. Is that not insane? You couldn't do that in China. Of being like, well, I'll just be one little small part of northeastern China and their military history. Like, there's not enough going on. Whereas Sweden has 200 years of like, and then it has the Vikings even before that. And it has the Goths before that. It's craziness. And then they have 200 years of peace. And now they've joined NATO again. So they're back to war mode. Sweden and Finland are back into beast mode. So, like, a little country of a couple million people gives me a dissertation. That's kind of crazy. But that's how much war is part of the European mindset. It's how much it's part of the economy, how much it's part of the culture. Vasco da Gama's second and third voyages, which nobody ever talks about, he became a pirate. He attacked the Muslims on Hajj, on their way, on a pilgrimage of peace to Mecca. But since they were carrying cash, there's no credit cards in the ancient world or in the medieval world. So they had to carry cash on them that they would need for 2 or 3 years of journey. He attacks them, robs them, steals their kids. He kidnaps children to give them to Portuguese parents who don't have kids to raise as Christians. The Russians have done this in the first years in the Ukrainian war. They stole Ukrainian children and give them to Russian parents to raise as Russians. Because if the kids are little enough, they won't remember that they spoke a different language, that they had different parents, that they were a different religion. So it's a way of repopulating yourself by stealing other people's children. That's Vasco da Gama, the guy who made it to India. He's a pirate. The Portuguese start taking war slaves in India. Later on, they'll take war slaves in China until both the Mughal Empire and then later the Ming Empire send 100,000 person armies. Like the Mughals were so mad at the Portuguese, they sent a giant army full of war elephants and cannon. And the, 200 Portuguese guys were like, whoa. They're facing certain death. And they're like, okay, we won't take slaves. Can we still trade with you? And the Mughals who want access to European technology say, sure, okay, right? We'll sell you stuff, but you can't take any slaves. And the Portuguese go, okay, we won't take any slaves. We won't make war on Indian kings. Because if we do, we're going to lose. And they do the same thing against the Ming. Same thing. And they get put on an island, Macau, and like as far away from Beijing as you can get and still be like part of the Chinese Empire, part of the Ming Empire. And they're like, okay, we'll be here, way out of the way, you know. So, and what did the Portuguese use those war slaves to do? Work on sugar plantations in the Azores. Now, those sugar plantations don't work very well. But remember, slaves and sugar and tropical weather. We're going to come back to that. So what we have is crusading violence. Is part of European capitalism. Now, we're not full capitalists yet, right? Adam Smith has not written Wealth of Nations, right? But that's where we're going. Into European economics, violence, conquest, plunder is very much a part of it. Non-Europeans don't have rights that Europeans have to respect, unless, of course, they can win. Right? The Portuguese don't respect India or China until they send armies that can kick them off the continent. So look at how this works, right? There's violence. There's money and violence. But the money is more important. Because when the money is threatened, they stop the violence. When the Ming and the Mughals say, we're not putting up with you anymore, get the F out. The Portuguese say, we'll stop, we'll change, if we can still buy your stuff. So the money is more important than the violence. But the two do go together, especially if the people that they're interacting with can't defeat their violence. If they can't push back, Europeans don't respect them. Which is mean. Like, let's be honest, right? It's cruel, it's mean, it's selfish. It's a couple other ists, but we don't have race yet. We don't have, right? But there's a couple of isms that are probably a part of this, right? But it's also how Europe works. Can you beat me up? Is basically the watchword of Europe in this time period. It's war all the time. If you play Crusaders Kings 3 or Civilization or Europa Universalis, right? You don't play it to be peaceful and build like libraries. You play it to do war all the time and build an empire, right? I go to the game store and there's war games, European history war games. Tactical ones, strategic ones, national ones. Right? There's video games, a multitude of video games that are strategic war games. All right, so Europe has a fetish for violence, but it's also might makes right. If you are too weak to defend yourself, I don't have to respect you. But if you can beat me up, okay. Our relationship can change. It will be based on money. So what does this mean? It means technology equals power, and that equals money. Ships with cannon dominate the trade routes. Piracy becomes profit. Why should I go all the way to India, buy the stuff, make trades, deal and negotiate, set up a factory to continuously improve stuff and buy more stuff, and when I could just steal it halfway along the way? Why set up the factory, make the stuff in China when I could just steal the 18-wheeler truck right before it gets to Walmart? Why not do that? I get all the profits and none of the expenses. So piracy becomes huge, which means poor dudes People who don't want to be a farmer or who can't be a farmer, but have no money to be like a lord or someone important, they can make money by being a pirate. They can make money by joining a mercenary outfit and going to the New World to attack the Aztecs. War is a growth business in 1500. So what about other kings? Well, England's a mess. It's a mess of civil wars and these wars with France, right? The 100 Years' War. France is a mess. Wars and wars and wars everywhere. Spain, in 1492, finally gets peace after 700 years. The Reconquista ends. Granada is conquered. Queen Isabella wins. Now you may know as Ferdinand and Isabella, Ferdinand doesn't matter. Isabella matters. Isabella was Queen of Castile. She's the one with the money. She's the one with the armies. She's the one with the navy. She matters. The only reason Ferdinand matters is because she married him. If she had married the King of Portugal, there is no Spain. Portugal is Spain on our maps today, except for Barcelona. The Catalans would be its separate little country, and that would be Catalonia, and it'd be a separate country. There'd be no Spain, and the rest of Iberia would be Portugal. That's how close the world was to changing. It was a marriage between two dudes. Like, she picked one rather than the other. I don't know why she picked Ferdinand rather than John. I think it's John in Portugal. But she's the one that matters, which is why it's Ferdinand and Isabella, right? How many queens do you know? The fact that you know that she's a queen tells you she's the important one, right? Right? Like Cleopatra. If you know Elizabeth I, Elizabeth II, Victoria, if you know the name of a woman, it means she's important. So Queen Isabella has the money, the troops, and the ship. The problem is that with the peace, you have a whole lot of people who don't want to be at peace. They have had war all the time, and now they're unemployed. And in fact, they're influenced by the crusading spirit. They have the church, they have the government, they have saying war is good, war against the Muslims. And so you're done. Hey, let's go to Morocco. Let's go fight more non-Christians. Let's go. This is good. Let me make more money. I don't want to be a farmer. All these people do not want to be farmers. They are there to fight, kill, and plunder, or die trying. They are there to get rich or die trying. And that's a problem for Isabella, because invading Morocco is a problem. There's a real king there. There's a real Muslim state there. If you invade Morocco, it's going to bring in Algeria and Tunis and other Muslims. It might even bring in the Turks. Right? It's going to be a problem. It's a thing. And but even scarier is they might turn on you. Unemployed ex-soldiers are a problem going all the way back to the ancient Greece. The Odyssey is the story of unemployed ex-soldiers. They get into a lot of trouble. The fall of the Roman Republic, I make the argument in my 101 class that part of it is Rome's inability because of income inequality, basically. The rich got so rich, they stopped caring about the middle classes and the poor, that unemployed ex-soldiers basically tore the Roman Republic apart by siding with different, by being part of these private armies of Pompey or Caesar or Sulla or Marius, that they didn't care about the Republic anymore because the Republic didn't care about them. They were unemployed ex-soldiers, and they weren't getting the relief, the dignity they wanted. And here comes Columbus. And Columbus comes knocking on the door. Hey, Queen. Hi. Remember when you told me to come back in 1488? You told me come back when you're done. Yeah, you're done. Yeah, conquer Granada. Yeah. 2 hours ago, I showed up. Can I have some money? And Queen Isabella says, sure, you can have some money. You can have some ships. You can take some men. Take them. And the idea of going west is to have a shortcut to China. Portugal is already 50 years ahead. It's on its way to getting to India. You are not catching them by going around Africa. It ain't happening. You don't know any of the trade routes. You don't have any friends along the coast of Africa to trade with. You've got nothing. So you want to catch up, you got to cheat. You got to have a shortcut. And that is going west. Now, the problem with going west is nobody thinks anything. They know the world is round. Let's start there. They know the world is round. They do think it's smaller than it is, even though the ancients had it at the right size. Their math was right. Medieval math had it a little bit smaller. But here's the thing. Nothing is out there. There is nothing to stop at. You're going west, and it's like crossing a desert of water you can't drink. And you don't really know how far that is. And you don't know what the winds are going to do. You don't know what the tides are going to do. You don't know what the currents are going to do. So you may go into a desert and find yourself stuck with water you can't drink. The ships cannot carry enough water. Remember, you need about a gallon, half a gallon to a gallon of water a day as a normal person, right? You can't carry that much water on a ship. 400, 200, 300 men for months at a time. You can't do it. And so that's why it's like, well, why didn't people go west before? It's like, because the math, given the size of the ships, given the resources needed, given the inputs needed, the math didn't work. So you say, well, why now? Well, because Queen Isabella has a problem. And sending a couple hundred men, maybe 1,000 people and a couple of ships offsets that. It's like, hey, go. If you get to China, great. I make money, and then I could ship all these other guys to China, and they could become pirates in the Chinese oceans, right, or whatever, right? If Columbus doesn't come back, didn't cost me anything. The discovery of the Americas changes everything. It becomes a place for Crusaders to conquer. There's non-Christians there. These people haven't even heard of Jesus, which means you could conquer them. They have lots of gold. Gold is everywhere. You could just literally stuff your pockets with gold. And so very quickly, within the next few years, 20,000 soldiers, priests, and mercenaries head to the New World. In the 1520s, they conquer the Aztecs in Mexico. In the 1530s, they conquer the Incas and the Incan states in Peru, in South America. They get rich. They go home. The king gets 15%. Remember that number. Remember that the king gets it. Cortez and all of these conquistadors, they are violent. They are pirates. They are plunderers. But they also paid their taxes. Why? Because they liked their freedom. They didn't want the king to send an army and stop them. Cortez conquered the Aztecs without official permission. Who does that? Can you think of a general today in the American army that would go and conquer a whole other civilization without the okay of the president or Congress? Think about that. It's impossible. None of the American generals in the Civil War, none of the American generals in World War I, none of the American generals in World War II did much of anything without the okay of the government. Now, on the local individual level, they might have done it, but they didn't say, I'm going to go conquer Russia by myself. No, they didn't. I'm going to take my troops and go conquer Turkey. No, they didn't. So they paid their taxes. They paid the 15% to make sure the king left them alone. But they didn't want to stay anyway. The Caribbean is too hot. It's got malaria, yellow fever. It's got mosquito. You may go, oh, it's not technically malaria. It's mosquito-borne diseases that kill you. It's malaria. It's yellow fever. It's whatever it is, right? There's a whole host of mosquito-borne diseases that kill you. And if you've ever been in Florida in August, there are mosquitoes, and a lot of them. If you've been in South Carolina, Congaree National Park is the last old-growth forest in the eastern United States. I've been there. There's a reason it's the last. It is so full of mosquitoes that even when you're wearing armor, like shirts that are mosquito-proof shirts, they bite through the mosquito-proof shirt. It's like wearing chainmail, and they bite through it. Or they try to bite through it. If you've ever watched Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, which isn't Indiana Jones, it's just Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's a scene where there's all the tarantulas on Indiana Jones' back. That's mosquitoes in South Carolina. You don't want that. Nobody in Spain wants that. There's malaria. There's mosquitoes. It's too hot. The weather sucks. There's no ports. Like, where are you? Where? You can't bring anything in. So, like, okay, yeah, I like living in a tent and conquering people. Not forever. I want a bed and a feathered pillow and, like, a nice blanket. Well, where am I going to bring that stuff into? There's no ports. There's no civilization. European civilization. There's no infrastructure to stay. So they go home. Nobody wants to stay in the New World until a new discovery. So there's silver in the mountains. There's stuff, but everybody intends on going home. They're getting rich and going home. Spain, Portugal, until the discovery of sugar. Sugar, again, changes everything. So this is our third change everything for the Europeans in one lecture. Sugar came from India, but it's too bulky. It's not a major crop because it's too bulky to ship easily. Cane sugar is in a cane. It's in a stalk. It's like bamboo. How do you carry that? How do you put that on a camel? So you have to grind it. But even if you grind it, it's big. Like, you can hold it in your hand and see the grains. That's big. So shipping it is hard. So it's never really part it's not really ever a major part of the Silk Road trade, where silk is light and it's easy and it's very high value. You could ship a lot. The Portuguese failed to grow it in the Azores. But in the New World, it grows. That crappy weather that the Spanish and the Portuguese can't stand, sugar cane loves it. And there's no natural predators. Nothing naturally eats it. And so it grows and it grows and it grows all on its own. And so what happens is, you can make money on this. Consumption will increase by 50 times in 200 years. That's massive. 50 times. That's massive. But it's a problem. The problem of sugar is it's simply too hard to grow profitably. You need a lot of land. Because again, this is like bamboo. It takes space. It's not thick, but it takes up a lot of space to grow. So you need a lot of land. You need a lot of workers to cut it. It's hard to cut. Again, it's this stalk. It's a hot climate. You cut bamboo in 95-degree weather, 96% humidity. And see how far you get. before you just pass out. And again, it's too bulky to ship easily. So you need a financial and a scientific revolution to make it worthwhile. And then you get that scientific revolution. And with that scientific revolution comes the financial revolution. And Europe changes. The ability to liquidize sugar is the solution to shipping. The discovery, and this is not a new discovery, I'm sure. It's got to go all the way back to medical procedures. But you can dissolve a solid into water, into a liquid, in much higher proportions than the water itself. It means, well, take a Coke. And a 12-ounce Coke is 9 teaspoons of sugar. A Monster energy drink is 14 teaspoons of sugar. Now, I know for you Europeans and anybody who's not an American, you would go, well, how many grams is that? It's like 50-something grams. For the Monster, it might be more. You would never, if I gave you 9 teaspoons, you couldn't eat it. You might get the first one down. And the second one, you'd be like, oh, it's too sweet. It's too much. And yet, you'll go to Wawa, get a 44-ounce Coke, which is like 30 teaspoons, and spend the next half hour just drinking it. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, it's great. And don't get me started on all the sugar that's in a cappuccino, latte, pumpkin spice, this stuff. I mean, they should just shoot the sugar right into your veins. Wouldn't be as much fun. But a Starbucks drink, the amount of sugar in a Starbucks drink would make your eyes water if you had to just eat the sugar. But you could suspend it in a liquid solution and then just dehydrate it. Just evaporate off the liquid and you're back to the sugar. And so that becomes the solution to shipping. So you need ships because you need a way of getting it from the New World. It can't grow in Europe, so you need a way of getting it from the New World to Europe. So you need ships, which is itself a capitalist engine. Sugar becomes a capitalist engine because there's so much needed in order to make it profitable. You need ships, wood, carpenters, sailcloth, nails, food, water, barrels. You need mills dedicated to grinding the sugar, and they need to be in the New World. So now you need to stay in the New World because you have to build the mills to grind the sugar. So that needs infrastructure. It needs roads. It needs a furnace to liquefy the ground sugar. You need insurance in case of storms or pirates, right? You're not going to put $10 billion worth of sugar into a ship and then sail it off to the New World and hope 6 months from now it shows up, right? That's too much money. So now you get an insurance company that says, okay, you pay me $100,000, and if something bad happens to it, like pirates, I'll give you the $10 million. So you pay the insurance company up front a percentage of what the thing is worth, because probably nothing will happen. But in case it does, you're protected. And the insurance company makes money every time something bad doesn't happen. For every ship that's not lost to storms, that's not attacked by pirates. You get banking loans to buy supplies, tools, machines, pay the workers. Nobody has this cash on hand. So they need to borrow money. Where are they going to borrow it from? Some rich dude? The rich dude's not going to do it. But the rich dude will give his money to a bank. And the bank pays him 5%, 3%, right? An interest rate to borrow the money from him. So it's got to be high enough that it's worth giving to the bank. So say 5%, right? And then the bank turns to me, who I want to build a sugar mill, and says, great, 9%. And I say, great, because I don't have any money. So I'll take the 9% because all I have to do is make 10% and I can pay back the loan and make a profit. And remember, sugar is growing at 50 times in 200 years. So it's growing. It's a growth industry. Now we need roads and we need ports and we need dock workers and we need merchants to sell it, right? We need a place to sell sugar products. We need a Wawa full of chocolate. We also need lawyers and laws to enforce contracts because the banking is going to give me the money. How do they know I'm going to pay it back? They have to have the right to sue me, right? I'm going to buy insurance. How do I know they're going to pay me in case of pirates? I have to be able to sue them. What about all the farmers who are going to be shipping me their sugar to grind? What if I don't grind it? Then they're out. They have to be able to sue me. What if I say, no, it's going to be triple the cost than that we agreed to? Again, they have to be able to sue me, but I also have to be able to sue them if they don't provide me with what they said they would provide me. Oh, you said you would give me 100 tons, and you didn't. You gave me 3 tons. So I want the money I gave you up front back, right? You need lawyers and you need laws to enforce contracts, which now you need an infrastructure for the law. And this is where the king comes in, because the king gets to make the law. But now laws have to apply to everybody all the time, consistently, not just for the rich guys at a certain time when they do certain things and then ignore those rich guys when they break those laws because it's politically convenient. Now, capitalism demands that contracts, that laws be filed all the time, that business laws be filed all the time. Now you need accounting, stock markets to raise cash. You need reinvestment to build more infrastructure. So instead of you take your profits and you buy land and you become a lord out there outside of Madrid, no, you take the money and you pour it back into the business or into the bank to make more money. And that's capitalism. Now we've hit capitalism, when money makes more money by being reinvested. Capitalism is about capital, money. Capital is money. It's not about people. It's not about things. The only thing capitalism cares about is money. We're going to talk about that when we hit philosophy in a little while. So the good thing is, there's 60 million American natives that you could turn into workers. Sugar planting, cutting, harvesting, liquefying, it sucks. Sucks so bad. So Europeans don't want to do it. Who would want to leave their farm in France to go to Nevis and die from malaria? No, thank you. So you need non-Europeans to do this awful, terrible work. Do you see a consistent through line to today? It is hard to get citizens to do awful work. They don't want to do it. Why? Because it's awful work. So you need to have people who don't have other options to do terrible work. The Native Americans, they just got conquered. The perfect people. They'll get citizenship. They'll get Christianity. They'll get to be Spanish or Portuguese. And all they have to do is work for white folk, work for Spanish, work for Portuguese, work for Christians as either plantation workers doing sugar or miners mining silver. Because even though we haven't talked about that, that's still out there. There's literally a mountain in Bolivia, Potosi, P-O-T-O-S-I, P-O-T-O-S-I. That's a literal mountain of silver. Like if you dug into it, you get silver out of it. So Native Americans will get 2 jobs. Plantation worker for sugar or miner for silver. Okay, it may not be the greatest distribution of wealth and distribution of labor. It may not be equal. It may not be fair, but it's an exchange. They'll work. They'll get Christianity and citizenship, and in a generation or 2, they might be able to move up. They might be able to become Spanish, marry in, have kids, there's a possibility of that. All they have to do is not die. You could see where this is going. So I'm sorry, because things are about to get really terrible in the next video, in our next lecture. We're going to talk about some terrible, horrible treatment of people coming up next. So be safe. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry for what's about to happen. Bye.